Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Corner Office Chats. I'm so excited to be here with you today and talk about the idea of connecting and how you're showing up and authentically connecting today, and how that is going to create your future. So I want to introduce, possibly for the first time for some of you, and share with you something called integrity-based communications. This was a model that was developed by Shelley Bauer, who's a leadership development expert. And, she talks about a way to communicate and connect with others in a way that is based in integrity, in how we are showing up honestly, authentically, and genuinely in order to build and cultivate deep, high trust relationships that are going to serve us in so many positive ways in the future. So I want to share a little bit about what this looks like and how you can start using it in your life, in your business, in your career today. So first off, Shelley really talks about her definition, if you will, of integrity. And one of the top synonyms for her is honesty. But understanding that integrity is more than just honesty. It's really about in alignment with what you're saying, how you're saying it. So your tone of voice, your body language, your nonverbal cues, your attitude, right? The reason and intention behind what your conversation is about or your interaction is about, and your energy and emotional intelligence. So she really looks at the way that we show up, right? And making sure that's in alignment with your truth, whether that be for the truth of the conversation, how you feel about that person, or the relationship that you are wanting to cultivate. And she believes that if any of these components are out of alignment, then we are sending a mixed message. Right? When somebody's saying something, but something inside you is telling you that there's something just doesn't feel right about this, right? And that's like that first hint of a lack of trust with another person. So we want to build this trust, and the way to do it is to be operating out of integrity. Right. So she talks, I'm not going to share out all of the work, but I do want to kind of point out a few areas that I think were really interesting, and even some just ideas that were new to me the very first time I heard it, and changed the way that I think a little bit. And so one of the axioms of integrity-based communications is that all truth is perceptual, filtered, and interpreted. Right? So we all have this lens that we look through, and it is colored by our past experiences, our past relationships, our past knowledge and learning. And so even though we don't mean to bring in our past bias into it, we often do, right? So real authenticity means admitting that bias or your own perception or your own interpretation of that, and being the person to say, this is how I understood that. Is this correct? Or, this is what I said, and this is what I meant by that. Is that clear? So really understanding that your truth might be different than somebody else's truth that's experiencing the same situation as you are. Another one that she talks about is that sometimes we want what we want, but we're not clear about what it is that we want, right? We ask for things, we hint towards things, or we're not always clear in our communications. So one of the biggest things here is being extremely clear with others. And this starts with being clear with ourselves, right? If you are, making a deal with somebody, if you are helping somebody out, if you are wanting to further a relationship, being really clear with yourself what you're looking for or what your intentions are behind that, and then being very clear with that other person and starting that project, that conversation, that relationship off on an honest footing. Another sort of area that is really important to talk about is accountability, and the fact that a lot of us are afraid of actually, holding ourselves accountable when we either make mistakes, when we misinterpret somebody else's intentions, or in other words, we're not right. right? We don't want to hold ourselves accountable. So, in those few things, is there any areas that you are feeling like, that's an area I could spend a little bit more time and focus on developing? So, when we're thinking about how are we connecting today with the people around us, and what foundation are we building for that relationship for the future? When we're talking about things like integrity and trust and truth and honesty, these things aren't just singular one-time events, right? These are things that have to be done over and over again to build the trust, to build the relationship, to build the intimacy, or to build the understanding, the respect. These things don't happen just on one-off or by chance. It's something that we want to be really intentional about cultivating. So how do we do this, right? Understanding a little bit more about how do we show up with integrity, and how do we have integrity in our communications so that we're building the best possible futures for ourselves. What are some things that you can do? This is what I want to share with you today. And these are things that it's simply a matter of getting more in tune and more clear with yourself and how you communicate with others, and then setting that into motion so that we're developing this habit. So the first thing is tell your truth quicker, faster. So the truth as you genuinely perceive it, right? Being really, really specific and putting that truth up front in your conversations. So if let's say you have created something, let's say you're at work, you've created an agenda for a meeting, but you think it's pretty good, but you're not sure that you have hit every point, or you think you might be missing something. Instead of just saying, hey, Joni, can you have a look at the agenda before I send it out? Right? Instead of just letting that kind of go, they may think that you believe that you have it right, right? You can say something like, hey, Joni, I've drafted the agenda for the meeting. I'm not sure I've got it quite right. I feel like something's missing. Could you have a look? Right? Do you see the difference in that communication? There's no assumption that you have it perfect. You're actually letting them know that you feel like you might be missing something, so they're going to keep that extra eye open. Okay? Another thing we can do is ask for what you want, right? Disclose the actual result that you seek honestly, okay? Don't hint towards or say things that like, it would be really nice if, or typically we see this turnaround in a week, or, be direct and ask specifically for what you want. So you might, let's just say you are, you need something by a specific day, right? You're gonna name the deadline that you're looking for. I really need to get this agenda completed by Friday at 5, Friday end of day, and I'm really hoping you can help me with this, right? I'm really hoping you can spot any areas that I've missed. Okay, so you're getting really, really specific about what it is you want, as opposed to an email landing in somebody's inbox saying, hey, could you have a look at this for me? There's no sense of urgency. There's no deadline. There's no sort of direction for what it is you really want them to do. A third thing that you can do is ask questions. Okay. So simple, but don't discount it based on simplicity. Ask questions for clarity, right? If you think you have a good idea, ask one more question to make sure that you've got it 100%. Talk back through what somebody's just asked you to do. Right? Let me just make sure I have this clear. Focus on the other person's motivations, perceptions, preferences, or expertise, right? If you're looking for some guidance in a particular area or on a particular project, you might ask the question, like, what do you think would be the best way to present this information to the board? Given that you have the X experience, how might you go about it, right? Getting more information and understanding from somebody else based on either what they're good at, their expertise, or if you're presenting to them, asking that question of, what's the best visual representation of this for you, right? Instead of trying to assume, trying to guess, and then either getting it wrong, or just, it's a simple question that we can start. And, then you start to learn these things about the people that are in your life, either professionally or personally. The fourth thing is pay attention, right? When you're in communication with somebody, listen and look as though you're listening, right? Make sure your phone is, you're not on your phone. You're not trying to draft an email as you're on a Zoom call with somebody, hoping that they're not going to notice. Watch your body language. Does your body language, does your facial expression, does your posture suggest to them that you're listening, right? Many people aren't, most people aren't as perceptive as they think that they are, but there's this under sort of current of that nonverbal communication that we get those feelings, right? They could be positive, negative, or neutral, but we get a feeling when we're with somebody. And often this has to do with their nonverbal cues as to how engaged they are, whether they're actually listening or interested in what you're saying. So think about that. Okay, think about, how do you present yourself and what cues are you giving to the person that you're interacting with? You want to be somebody that when somebody leaves a conversation, they say, you know what, I was just talking, Alexis always seems like she's listening to what I have to say, or I just feel good after a conversation. They may not even know why, but chances are it's because they felt that they were heard in that interaction. Okay, and then the fifth one is keep your agreements. So make agreements that you can keep and keep the agreements that you make. Okay. So before just saying, yep, boss, absolutely, I'll have that done to you ASAP, or yep, absolutely, I'll be able to get this to you by the end of the day. Before jumping into an agreement or taking, committing to something, say, I would love to help you out. Let me just check my calendar to see when I can get this done for you. Okay. Get into the habit of just taking that beat before you immediately commit to something. Have an idea of what your day, week, month looks like so that you're not taking on too much. And now you're not going to be able to live up to your word. You're not going to be able to fulfill on your commitments. And this is going to go against your integrity and that relationship that you've been trying to build with this person or this group of people. So if you realize that, you aren't able to either produce the quality of work that you're known for, or that you'd want to, or, you aren't even sure if you're going to be able to make a deadline, let them know that. And you may disappoint them in the present for that couple of seconds. And, you may say something, you know what, I can't get this to you by noon, but I can definitely get you to you by 2. Would that work? Right? It's better than completely disappointing them and saying, yes, I'll have this on your desk at noon. And then 2 o'clock rolls around and they're like, it's still not on my desk. Where is it? Now there's frustration. Now it's leading into anger, distrust, all of those things. So take a beat. Make sure that you're honoring your commitments, that you're keeping your agreements by making sure that it's possible in the first place. And then lastly, if you can't keep an agreement, okay, sometimes things do come out. You look at your calendar, you're like, I've got the whole afternoon, or I don't have much going on this week. And then emergency strikes. Something urgent lands on your desk. Something happens at home, right? You get sick, right? There's all these things that can happen. They don't happen every day. They don't happen all the time, but they definitely can come up. So what do you do then? You want to make sure that you give and receive accountability. When you can't keep an agreement, own that responsibility, okay? And then make a new agreement. So you realize you're going to miss a deadline, right? You reach out before the deadline, right? And not a minute to the deadline. As soon as you realize you're not going to be able to keep that agreement, you reach out and say, Bill, I apologize. I won't be able to make the 1 o'clock deadline. The department head has asked me to stay behind. And I felt like I couldn't say no, but I can make a 2 o'clock work. Does that work for you? Right? Let them know the reason, and not to say, hey, I'm not gonna be able to make it. I'll have it to you by 2, or, sorry, I'm not gonna be able to make it. I'll have it to you as soon as I can. Get specific. Own the responsibility, right? It wasn't the fact that, the department head made you stay behind after the meeting, but you felt as though you needed to, right? You felt as though you couldn't say no, or you felt as though this was going to be beneficial. And, whatever the case is, it's hard sometimes. Sorry, guys. I don't always come up with the best examples of right on the spot, but letting them know specifically that, your part in it, what are you responsible for, and take ownership for that. So when you start to apply these ideas, these concepts, and this integrity-based communications, you start to project confidence. You start to be able to hold these difficult conversations, because let's say you have to tell somebody that that you can't meet a deadline, right? Your boss, let's say, but you practice all of these ways of communicating with integrity to start. You can say confidently that I looked at my calendar. I had time blocked off to work on this project. A, B, C, and D came up that I was not expecting, and it's pushed me behind. Right? So you start to be a little bit more confident in that conversation, and it's not always an easy conversation to have, but you know that you can do it because you know your intentions were there. You know that you did what you needed to do, and sometimes things happen, and that's okay. But you're going to own that, and then be able to make a new commitment, or be able to repair the relationship if there was any damage, or whatever the case may be. You're going to be able to give and receive feedback a lot better, right? How many of you get stuck when you have to give feedback to somebody if you're in a management or a leadership role, right? When you start practicing this, you're going to be able to give feedback more easily, right? Because you've now got this knowledge of things that they could take on, and also receive the feedback, right? So by adopting an integrity-based way of communicating, you're going to feel less stress, less frustration. You're going to be able to build and cultivate high trust relationships, and you're going to be able to get more out of your teams at work, right? In the workplace, in your business, you're going to be able to really start to develop that top performing work or professional team, because the way that we show up often is contagious, right? If you're showing up with integrity, if you're owning your responsibility, so are the other people that are around you. So try these tips. I'd love to hear in the comments what you think about them, and I'd love to hear in the group, in the chat too. Did you try some of these, and how did they work for you? Thanks, guys. We will catch you next week. Same time, same station, Corner Office Chats, 1:30 Eastern next Thursday. Have an amazing weekend.